Welcome to our Big Ideas webinar series. I'm your host and moderator, Zach Hewells. Before we get started today, let me dive a little into the Big Ideas webinar series. This special thought leadership series features NAFA members who are using innovative techniques, tools, or approaches to advance their practice and better serve their clients. If you are a Big Ideas person who would like to be featured, please let us know. We would love to have you. Additionally, the Big Ideas webinar series culminates into the Big Ideas workshops, which are only held at our Performance Plus Purpose conference. And this year our conference is in Orlando from September 11th to the 14th. So if you like today's webinar, you will love our power-packed lineup at P+B. And there's still time to register, so check out the agenda and schedule at conference.nafa.org. That's conference.nafa.org. And speaking of P+P, our speaker today is Brian Haney, who will definitely be at this year's conference. We're thrilled to have Brian present for us today. Brian has been in the financial services industry since 2003, working with a diverse group of clients representing a slice of the Washington, D.C. marketplace. As a native Washingtonian, he grew up in Chevy Chase, Maryland, attending high school in Bethesda. He founded the Haney Company with his father 7 years ago to combine 2 generations of industry experience. Recently, he launched his own podcast, That's My Financial Guy, to share valuable insights with a broader audience. Brian is quite active in the industry and received much recognition during his time. Just in the past few years, Brian was named one of NAFA's prestigious 4 Under 40 in 2017, as well as their diversity champion in 2018. Additionally, Brian was named to the Washington Business Journal's 4 Under 40 in 2019. He is an active board member of NAFA Greater Washington, currently serving as a Media Past president. Now, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to use our Q&A feature in Zoom. And without further ado, Brian Haney. Welcome, Brian.
All right, thanks, Zach. Excited to be doing this today, everybody. I hope you're excited to be on this. Just going to walk through technology and ways to take technology, incorporate it into your practice, and I'm going to cover really a ton of ground. So regardless of the type of practice that you have, what type of company you work with, whatever you're doing, there should be a nugget or two in this presentation that will help you immediately, and hopefully more than one. Let's see. But before I get into anything that I want to talk about, I want to open it up to the audience. Is there anything that anybody out there has that's a burning interest or question or a topic that you want to make sure that I cover? Please just let me know now. All right, crickets, and if Zach's not getting anything in the type box, then we'll just keep on rolling. I mean, if you have bright ideas like these two people, we want to hear it. So go ahead and use the type box at any time, and there'll be plenty of time at the end for questions. So I'm going to go over just, you kind of already heard my bio, so I'll crush through that pretty quickly. If you're not convinced, maybe the technology makes sense. I can't imagine why that might be the case, but we'll kind of cover that. And then I'm going to go through the tech commandments, which is going to be really important for you to be aware of and keep in mind. And then we're going to go through 3 levels of technology, and I'll kind of cover each level, so whether it's novice all the way to advanced, and then give some really strategic things at the end. So I'm going to try to keep it paced. I don't want to go too fast. And again, if there's something that, I'm covering, feel free to type in a question or just make sure that you think of it for the Q&A at the end. So this is B-Dizzle right here, guys and gals. And I've been around the industry for a little while. I cut my teeth in banking and kind of private wealth lending, and then went to an independent model after about 5 years of that. And I've just been really fortunate that because of the team and the people that I work with, and really because of NAFA and the people in NAFA that took me under their wing, I've been able to have a bunch of success, at least some, awards and accolades over time. Top left, by the way, or depending on how you're looking at it, that's my wife over there. So my biggest accomplishment is being married to that lady for 15 years, which, by the way, should just completely reinforce and solidify the fact that I am a good salesperson. And also this year, I was fortunate enough to be a lifetime member of MDRT. So it's been a lot of fun. You'll see in the bottom right, some of you may even recognize that face. That's Mr. Brock Jolly himself. My most recent podcast episode was an interview I did with him, and it was a great conversation we had, talking college planning and all kinds of fun stuff. So feel free to check that out and any of the other ones. All right, for the skeptic, or even for somebody who says, you know what, maybe I work for a company where technology and marketing and branding is done for me. Let me just make sure I kind of level the playing field. You know, technology isn't kind of a question of if, it's a must, in my opinion. And, you know, I think most of us understand that technology isn't something that's also going to get rolled back. The entire country, society, internationally, we're kind of moving forward. And so it's a good thing to be aware of. And then more importantly, it's a necessary thing to adopt. But the key about adoption is always proper and appropriate adoption. So there's going to be a lot of strategy points that I'm going to go through, and want to make sure that this one point stays at the forefront. It's never about quantity or rushing to do something. It's always going to be about quality. So that'll be a theme I'm going to hit throughout. And just look at the social adoption, and that, you know, that's just Facebook alone. I love this quote from Eric Wallman, who actually was an MDRT speaker a couple times. We don't have a choice to digitally transform. We have to choose how we do it. I think that frames everything about what we're going to talk about. It's here, and we get to engage and participate and be confronted by it, or we can make the choices and use it to our advantage. If 93% of buying decisions are influenced by social media, then the idea that you don't have a social media presence that isn't just you being there as a placeholder, but you being there as an influencer, that's a big difference. And I've seen a lot of people in our industry that I would consider their social media presence placeholder. And I'll talk about some of the things to be mindful of depending on how you're doing that. The concept of socialnomics, this is powerful. And, you know, we go all the way back to, you know, the last 125 years of NAFA. Probably the number one thing that we always talk about is, you know, how do we build a practice? How do we get referrals, right? That's probably the best, the easiest way. And by the way, what's the answer to the question? How do you get more referrals? Be referable. Deliver value, expertise, and experience to your clients that you don't ever have to ask for a referral, that they just naturally want to tell other people about you. Well, that's just from the relational side. Now we have the opportunity to use the technological side to do the exact same thing and put it on steroids. And oh, by the way, 90% of millennials are telling you, surveying, you know, saying that they share their brand preferences online, which would be inclusive of a relationship with a financial professional. Again, if you're still resistant to these ideas, the next generation and the generations thereafter are telling all of us that this is something that we must figure out. So 62% of millennials feel that, you know, an online presence drives their loyalty to a brand, yet the same group is telling you that they don't feel that they're getting their needs met online by a vast majority of whether it's a large company or even small and individual practitioners. So there's an opportunity here, right? And all the things that are identified here, being too long, sales driven, not tailoring messages. I'm going to get back to that part because that's a hugely critical point. Just being cliche or kind of, you know, scripted, if you will. If you don't think it comes through when you're talking, even if you've memorized a script, it absolutely comes through digitally a lot more than you realize. And we probably already received that. I mean, all of us have received kind of a blast email that was indescript. So we know what it feels like to receive it, and we want to be mindful that we don't do that. Personalization is huge. And it's becoming more and more of a priority in all kind of buying behaviors, both in person-to-person interactions and especially technologically. And then fun, and I can't emphasize this enough. We have a great opportunity to start having a lot more fun and to drive conversations, to have interactions online, right? And it's not replacing the interactions that we want to have in person, but it's going to be a great complement to them and enhancement to them. And really it allows each one of us to put our personality on display, because I know a lot of us are talented and fun individuals and professionals, and we want to let that show even more. So here are the tech commandments, okay? Again, I will have to read them and kind of give a quick framework. So be mindful of this. Honor thy brand. Above all else, the brand that you have, which is really you, and then you might have an independent practice like ours where there's a brand name, the Haney company. Maybe you work for a large company. Maybe you're a captive, like a State Farm agent, or even with like a major carrier like a Mass Mutual, Northwestern. Regardless of where you are in that spectrum and how much of the quote unquote brand comes through a company that isn't your name Inc., you still have to understand that people ultimately aren't buying your stuff or your company, they're buying you. And so honoring your brand means you really do need to understand what is your mission, what's your value proposition, why do you do what you do. I consider like your ethos, your brand, the ethos is like a higher level component to a brand, and it's the intersection of not just what you do, but why you do it. So very, very important. Sorry to beleaguer that first point, but it's really critical. I can't tell you, and I could Google probably the majority of you, after this is over to see, is it apparent and obvious online what your brand is, or is it confusing? Consider your audience, and I think this is pretty simple. Put yourself on the receiving end of anything that you want to put out and say, is that something that I'm interested in? Do I want to hear it? Does that pique my interest or curiosity? Does that meet me on a personal level that I would want to respond to, right? Don't just take, the stuff that we think industry stuff is interesting and the public should therefore be interested in it. Be a little bit more mindful and turn the table around and say, if I'm sitting on the other end as an audience recipient, is this something I'm going to want to pay attention to, listen to, or interact with? I already mentioned it before, quality must come over quantity every time. Do not overpost. You don't have to have, frankly, you don't even necessarily have to have a post every day. There are certain, I can certainly tell you, I don't have a post every day. So this isn't a 365-day-a-year necessity. And the more you post, especially if the quality is low, then, I think that that's going to cause your brand to suffer. Do not be a serial liker. You don't have to go online and like everything in everybody's posts, feeds, etc. Be selective. If you actually legitimately do like it, maybe you think it's worth a share, that's fine. But people can obviously also tell if you become the person that likes everything all the time, that's very apparent. And please don't become a LinkedIn stalker. And we all know what that is. If you want me to kind of quantify that, I'm happy to at a later slide. All right, so you want to be Superman online? You can be, but here's the key, right? In a fully digital, transparent world, integrity and reputation now become the same thing. All right, they're almost indistinguishable. And if most of your clients have Googled you or searched for you before they even meet with you, then what you put out there and what type of brand control that you have is critical. And so again, this is just the kind of the final point to hammer home the need for all of us to take control of technology and use it to our advantage. We have a great way to do that. All right, so this is level one. And this is something each one of us can and should do, right? If you haven't done it before, Google yourself and see what comes up. And if you don't like the results, you're going to have to look at ways to address that. There are very easy ways to do certain things, and then understanding kind of a little bit more of SEO, search engine optimization. There may be other things that you need to do to enhance your results and maybe move up the proverbial Google ladder if that's something you want to try to do. But just take a look in general and see kind of what does it go through several pages of Google and all the other stuff, and just see what does it look like if somebody is searching for you. What are they going to find, and is that the brand that you want to see represented? If you're on Facebook, great. If you're not, clearly in one of the earlier slides, you probably should be. A lot of people come back to me and say Facebook they don't like using it for business. I completely appreciate that and agree. In my personal profile, I really actually try to stay away from business as much as I can, because it's kind of, that's kind of still my personal domain. But there are ways to use it for business. And I also have a business page, and, I cross-pollinate and post and stuff like that. So there is, I figured out the line that I needed to walk, and we try to walk it. But you need to figure out what you're going to do with Facebook, and you have to find a way to use it strategically. Even if you decide that you don't want to use it for business, your contacts, this can be a great resource to you to understand your audience better, to pay more attention to what the people you're trying to reach online, what is their buyer profile, what are the things that they're interested in, and how you can use that to your advantage. If you're also, again, not on LinkedIn, you need to be, because that's kind of today's online white pages. So you got to have a bio and accomplishments and all the other stuff. And then Instagram, it probably even a couple of years ago, a lot of us probably wouldn't have thought of Instagram as a professional app or technology that we can use. And, there may be an argument depending on your brand type that maybe it isn't for you. However, it's easy. And because it also auto syncs with Facebook, it saves time in terms of cross-posting and doing some easy things well. And, it's just pictures, but you can have a fun way to create a professional brand through imaging that is powerful and can take you places. And if you also you'll find a lot of people, when you see those little boxes behind their name, they got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So again, a lot of your target audience is kind of already doing this themselves, whether it's professionally or personally. So you may be missing out on something by not doing it. All right, next level stuff. Twitter, YouTube, and blogging. And again, depending on where we're all coming from, some of these things may not even be available based on, the type of compliance dynamic that you're going to have. And, there's always a little asterisk to everything, right? For every rule, there's a way around a rule, et cetera. You may still be able to use things. It just may be restricted, or how you use certain things might change depending on kind of, what type of practice you have. But, Twitter for me was the last thing that I ever wanted to do for business about several years ago. And then, the more I kept running into clients who were using Twitter, using it professionally, and just on it in general, we realized, hey, we can't take a stance that says we can't do this, any longer. We can no longer not use it. And so it's I think probably the most powerful thing that you can do on Twitter is exactly what I'm saying. Throw out ideas and create discussions. This is a great way to have a, technology conversation, right? You can communicate to somebody not face-to-face, but online. You can ask questions, solicit feedback, throw out an idea, grab an article that's thought-provoking and write something about it and kind of see, how it gets kicked around. And that's a great way just to be interacting with people without it seeming like you're selling anything, but it can do a lot to create some subject matter expertise if you're kind of taking a role of a content leader and a subject matter expert approach on Twitter. It can bring a lot of value. YouTube, Instagram, YouTube, visual medium is hugely valuable and important because we naturally process information more visually than we do just through reading or hearing alone. So if there are ways to take advantage of video, it's certainly something I would encourage you to do. Now here's, again, the key is still quality. So I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of kind of dash cam videos and, hey, I just got out of the gym and I'm going to turn my phone around videos. Maybe not all video is good video. going back to your 10 commandments, consider your brand, right? Is this a reflection of your best professional self in the form of a video? So, something to think about. Getting good quality video nowadays, because of technology, is a lot easier to do than ever before, but you still want to take a few steps before you just kind of turn on a YouTube channel or station and start publishing things that maybe don't have the same kind of reach, capacity, or quality that they should. And then blogging takes a lot of time, but I got to tell you, the society at large, and probably a lot of your target audiences, they're probably already reading blogs, financial blogs, or even just non-financial people that have something that kind of touches our domain and our arena. A lot of people are consuming news, in air quotes, through blogs. So, it may be an arena where, of course, assuming your compliance department permits you, that you can find a way to engage. It takes a little bit more time than obviously Twitter and some of the other things, but can be a great way to just kind of have content out there, have conversations, again, enhance your brand and your value online. And here's kind of the last level. And this is, how can you productize your practice using social media and technology? So Zach already mentioned that I started a podcast only a few months ago. So it's only got a little bit of longevity. I think we have 9 episodes out now. It's kind of semi every 2 to 3 weeks schedule of release, but it's been tremendous for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a great way to produce good content that, people who are on iTunes who maybe are not clients of mine or people that I know can run across it, listen to it, and maybe that directs them back to me. It does wonders to demonstrate subject matter expertise and can, improve my visibility and my credibility. And it's also very strategic in that I do a lot of interviews. And so, let's say I want to build relationships within a market. A great way to open doors indirectly to maybe a client or prospect or center of influence is to say, hey, can I interview you for a podcast episode? I have yet to be turned down. And again, I don't interview everybody. I'm very strategic. Obviously, someone like Brock Jolly has, a tremendous reputation, and that was a great episode. But it's a way to have something that, hey, by the way, let's say you're in a Facebook group for, fill in the blank, alumni or whatever, and somebody's starting to talk about, oh, I needed help understanding what to do when I'm filing business tax returns to be a little bit more, proactive. Because, yeah, of course, that's, a likely conversation on Facebook. But, you now have something that you could just say, hey, oh, by the way, I just did an episode on this here. Just check it out, give it a listen, let me know what you think. Really, really great way to be influencing, reaching audiences, and, again, elevating your brand. Ebooks and white papers. And frankly, some of these things can actually sync up. I think technology works best when it synergizes together. So my podcast platform allows me to also then cross-post a lot of things and then get transcripts of those podcasts. So some of those transcripts I've now then loaded into technology called Designer and turned them into white pages. So this is just kind of, how can you take good content, repurpose it for your own practice with minimal time, energy, and effort, and use it in other ways that, again, enhances what you're able to do online. Very, very good things to have. You can look for co-authors. So, maybe you say, hey, Brian, I'm not a writer, or I don't have that much time, or, I don't even feel comfortable knowing how to do that. There's plenty of ways to partner or to, find a team or even find some content and pull something together where your input and your engagement is minimal, but it still can be powerful and maybe just branded. I've talked to certain attorneys and CPAs who have produced some of their own stuff, and I've just approached them and said, hey, can we just co-brand something? I really like what you did there. How about we just put it together, create a little ebook or PDF, and just put our logos on it and use it. Of course, with compliance's blessing. articles, working to release a book this year, which is a larger labor of love for anybody that understands what it's like to write a book. And then the last thing, online webinars. You know, the one thing that is becoming more and more apparent that technology is doing across our culture is there's now kind of a thirst for learning online through a variety of you know, ways. And even major colleges and institutions are recognizing that you know, there's a need to have a ton of information out there, webinars, presentations, etc. So, you know, whether you decide to put things together yourself and produce it and put it out online, put it out through your own website, post it somewhere else, or maybe you're able to take some existing presentations and just, you know, put yourself on them and record them and have them available for clients. There's a lot of ways to do that, but to be able to have your own webinar and educational content that you can send to people, invite people to listen to, watch later, and also maybe even approach organizations. You know, say you're a member of a chamber, why don't you say, hey, can I, you know, plug into any of your member education? Can I provide some webinar content for your members? What can I do to enhance your organization with the existing community that you're already trying to serve? Great opportunity, but it is all about content and good content. All right, so we went from kind of basic level to intermediary to now advanced. And so we'll kind of finish off with some additional advice points, okay? Consider a custom URL, you know, go out and see if you want to buy a domain name. Again, this isn't necessarily for everybody, but it's worth the effort because domain names are very inexpensive. So my podcast I bought, that'smyfinancialguy.com, and amazingly, it was available. And so that's a hosting site for all of my episodes. So a great, you know, a great way to just kind of maintain, again, a brand identity online that then I can take advantage of, you know, backlinking, cross-posting, and some of the things that help enhance SEO, search engine optimization. Understand full name and keyword searches, and kind of as you're doing them, make sure that your digital presence is very searchable, that the names work. Maybe if you need to bring in some hashtags into some of your profiles to help with searchability, that's a good way to do it. Backlinking, again, if there's some content out there that you've produced, maybe I've written 12 articles in the last 6 months, and I've always tried to have some ways to link between those articles, since most of them are published through, you know, other, you know, whether it's NAFA, whether it's other organizations, they're the ones doing the publishing, but any ways that I can have them, you know, backlink to me, some of my, you know, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, what have you, and vice versa, that's just going to help in terms of searchability, SEO, etc. Please take a look at all the pictures that you have out there. And certainly on the professional stuff, make sure that it's a good professional picture. I can't tell you how many times, especially on LinkedIn, I've looked at somebody's profile picture and said, oh, clearly you just cropped a, you know, social picture and you had, you know, you look nice, and then I see somebody else's shoulder. That, you know, you're making an impression before anybody even, you know, interacts with you about how credible or how professional you really are. So just think about it. You can actually get very inexpensive professional pictures done. So, you know, but just be mindful of it, because every part of your image is something that, you know, again, online, since it's not something that somebody's coming into an office for, you know, you need to have that much higher level of supervision over. And then understand how to master and use hashtags, because hashtags are, again, tying into searchability. You know, what hashtags make sense, and make sure that you can post them within your content so that way it's easier and also more searchable. Create a healthy digital footprint. So this is, again, how can you now go on and engage with people online? And what should the goal be? In my opinion, some of the best ways to become a subject matter expert is to engage in communities and have conversations. And you can, like we already talked about, you can do that very easily. So, you know, it's wonderful to find how many communities there are online. I mean, there's a community for just about everything under the sun. So take a look and consider, what are your professional interests? You know, what are the circles that you're trying to build relationships in? If you're a member of a certain organization, I guarantee you they have a group on Facebook or LinkedIn or what have you. So make sure you join all of those communities and become active in them. Take a look at the kind of conversations that people have online and become, you know, somebody that participates and then even starts to, you know, post things voluntarily, because that's a great and easy way to, you know, elevate yourself professionally with very little time, energy, and effort. So creating a digital footprint is about putting yourself out there in the right way, having conversations with your target audience, or maybe just centers of influence, and starting to build that connection before somebody maybe even ever sees you in person. A lot of ways you can do it. By the way, social ads and social media ads are very inexpensive depending on what you're trying to do as well. So even, you know, there's some ways to spend a little bit of money and maybe get a lot of, you know, accessibility and, you know, really elevate your profile that way. And now let's talk about, okay, I want to do a lot of these things. Ryan, you shared a ton of stuff. How do I put it all together? Like everything we talk about in our industry, let's put together a plan. Let's have a strategy. That's not just, hey, I'm going to do all of this stuff ad hoc, or, you know, spend 3 or 4 hours a day posting and this and that. First important point, again, commit to the content that makes sense, that you feel is going to be the most valuable, have the most resonance, really connect with your audience the best, and also stuff that, you know, I mean, the assumption everything is, of course, compliance approved, et cetera, already. But commit to content, and the commitment needs to look like not just producing it, but it needs to look like consistency. So the term I like to use is it should be predictable or rhythmic, right? Minimally, you might want to have kind of a part of your strategy might be, I'm going to commit to a content post once a week. So there's 52 posts that I'm going to be, you know, really engaged on and strategically putting out there, and then kind of seeing how they play out online over time. Maybe you want to do it more frequently than that, but again, committing to it and then setting it up so it's predictable. You know, if you're going to set it up and do it weekly, then put it on your calendar. Hey, Monday morning at 8 o'clock, I post blah, blah, blah across these mediums. And that way, you know, it's very easy. You don't have to think about, oh my gosh, I forgot to do it. Just make it easy for yourself. Pick the right platforms. These may be the ones that you gravitate towards yourself. Or, you know, maybe more importantly, what are the ones that your audience is already on? Where are the people that you want to do business with? What platforms are they on? That might tell you where you need to go if you're not already on there already. Have conversations. The best thing I think technology allows us to do is to talk to people in ways that we couldn't before. And so use that to your advantage. Have meaningful conversations. Not ones where, you know, you're immediately coming across like you're trying to get somebody to engage with you or sell something, but ones where you're just listening to your audience, listening to pain points, or maybe just kind of talking about, you know, current day events in a manner that can be framed back towards your own practice. Find ways to engage and contribute voluntarily, right? So, you know, maybe somebody's, you know, on their birthday asking you to donate to some cause, you know. That's great ways to do that. It builds value, it builds relationship, and is easy to do. And again, take control of your brand if you haven't already. All right, I mentioned we're going to go through these tools, all right? So this is really, really important. So here's all the social media stuff that I've already talked about. And oh, by the way, some may want to be on Pinterest as well. I've seen that be successful. That's not a site I can tell you our practice isn't on. But I have seen in some of the markets that our clients are a part of in the association marketplace, some private businesses, a lot of industries, people are starting to use Pinterest. So if you already kind of like that, maybe you pick that up and run with it. Have a CRM. And a lot of us may have CRMs that come through the companies that we work for. And so certainly take advantage of what's already being provided to you if one's being provided. But if you don't have one, you're going to need to, because if you're going to be going out and engaging in, you know, an audience where you have a lot of non-clients, right, you know, prospects, then you're going to need a tool to start to capture some of that data and manage it over time. So it's going to be necessary to consider some form of customer relationship software. And I've mentioned some of the leader ones, and there may be others that, you know, aren't on this list that might be specific to your industry that you want to take a look at. Helping to manage your practice as well is really critical. So, you know, Copy Talk, we're already on Zoom. So Calendly, a great way to have people come and schedule times with you where you're the one dictating the you know, allowing people to, hey, here's my office hours, if you will, and letting clients or prospects come in and put themselves on your calendar. It's fantastic. I already mentioned video and some of the other marketing channels. Real Wealth Client Cast is a NAFA related opportunity where, you know, it's already a platform that has the content that we were talking about, from videos to, you know, workshops, et cetera, and can be used through social media to do some auto posting and stuff like that. Hearsay Social is another one. Again, you know, you don't have to always produce and author each piece of content. Take good existing content, assuming it fits with your brand, or you can at least, you know, co-brand it or make it more of your own, and go ahead and post it that way. Podbean's one of the, you know, podcasting sites. There are many others. If you want to get your own design, or, you know, maybe you want to develop a logo, you don't really like it, or you want to redesign the one you have, great site to look at is Fiverr. It's essentially just an entire market of you know, digital consultants that will develop a logo, do a website, et cetera, and you can kind of go on and control it. You can say, hey, I need somebody to come in and build me a website, and this is my budget. And then people will literally bid on that, and you can pick who you want, and you can set the terms of it, and, you know, off you go. So a great way to kind of go out and do that. And then I mentioned when I take some of the you know, the text from my podcast and I load them in to create ebooks, Designer is the platform that I use for that. And I think there are a few others as well. All right, I've covered a lot of ground. I'm sure everybody that's been listening is ready to rock. Where do you need to go from there? I already mentioned Google yourself, but really audit yourself. Don't just, you know, look at yourself at a high level. Look at every aspect of both your online, your social media, as well as your not online. Look at your printed content. Consider the way that you dress. I know that this sounds crazy because we all, I'm sure, dress professionally, but, you know, maybe you have certain brand elements or colors that are, you know, part of your marketing materials on a regular basis, but maybe you want to start to bring that into, you know, the things that you wear. Think about your voicemail. Think about, I mean, there's so many ways people can connect to you, and each one of them you have an opportunity to give a little bit better personalization to, so you really want to do that. If you're not going to Performance Plus Purpose in September, I think you're crazy. It's going to be a fantastic conference. I will be there, and many others more you know, powerful and awesome than I am will be there as well. So if you aren't already registered, I'd encourage you to do so. Take advantage of what's already being provided to you, either through NAFA or through other, you know, relationships. Take advantage of what your companies offer you. You know, most of the companies that we represent have already spent millions of dollars on marketing and advertising and stuff in there. So, you know, if you're going to pull things off the shelf, make sure that you're really thinking about, you know, are these things that, again, fit my brand? Am I going to be able to use them and communicate in a manner that sounds like it lines up with the way I want to try to reach people? Don't just take everything off the shelf. Think about, you know, whether it lines up with what you want, or if it deviates, then maybe you don't want to use it. And reach out to fellow NAFA members or people in your professional circle, because there's a lot of people willing to help you out and come alongside you, so that way you can become, you know, better at this, more effective, and win. All right, I think that's it. So now it's time for Q&A. So what did you guys get out of this? Any ahas? I want to hear some feedback. What was something that you thought, was thought-provoking, or, one or two nuggets that you're going to walk away and try to apply? Anybody? Bueller? Oh, we got some chat. Let's see.
Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about Performance Plus Purpose Conference, just a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, so first of all, it's going to be in Orlando. So Disney World, who doesn't like Disney World, especially if you got kids, maybe, make it a, like we're doing, make it a family event as well as attend the conference. But Performance Plus Purpose is expressly designed with each one of us in mind. The sessions, from, keynotes to breakouts to everything, it's all about equipping you as a professional to be better. Whether it's, advanced ideas in terms of sales, whether it's stuff like this, technology, ways to, learn relationship management, behavioral economics, human psychology, runs the gambit. You'll be able to go to and find something that's going to really help you out. And there's so much there that Performance Plus Purpose is also allowing you to kind of personalize the experience a little bit more. So, to not be there and be connecting and growing your network and learning is, I think a lost opportunity. And it's, again, depending on where you are in the country, it's pretty relatively inexpensive to fly to Orlando from most major hubs. So, shouldn't be too much of a cost item, but definitely want you to be there and see this stuff in person, grow your network, meet folks, find a mentor if you don't have one, or just, sit down and have lunch with somebody who has a practice that's either similar to yours or very different. And, maybe you form partnerships, maybe you just, understand parts of the market that you don't interact with too much, or parts of our industry that you don't deal with. It's always good just to pick up nuggets and walk away a better professional. I can't believe, with all the ground that I covered on technology, there's not one question or one nugget anybody's willing to share. Come on.
They're soaking it all in.
Don't be shy. Maybe I offended half of you because I said you can't be a LinkedIn stalker, and half of your LinkedIn stalkers. So
that's an important one to navigate.
It is. So I'll go back to a couple of points and kind of build it out, because some of us probably do have, whether it's like ClientCast, Hearsay Social, you may already have adopted some kind of automatic social media management software where you've got things pre-compliance approved that are being posted on a scheduled basis, which is great. But I still, if you're going to go back and audit yourself, I want to take that back to, what's your brand? What's your ethos? What's your value proposition? And, quality over quantity. A lot of times I think, we just kind of take things because we know we're supposed to, or we've got this big social media box that we need to check because we're not going to have enough time in our work day to be online and actually, manicuring this the way that we would like to. So it's easy to just kind of turn something on automatically and set it and forget it. I literally this week in our largest market, which is the association marketplace, which is such a great, it's a great market because you literally dive into thought leadership and content creation for every industry, because there is an association for everything, right? So I'm spending a lot of time on the internal, what's called ASAE site, where a lot of people are posting and talking and having conversations. And literally one of the most responded to threads this past week came from an association consultant, where she just highlighted some communications that she received electronically, email, etc., from membership organizations that she was a part of. And her point was simply this, that these seemed very canned, dispersonal, and didn't really make her feel better about the nature of that relationship. So think about that. That's a person that's paying money, like, we all pay money to NAFA, right? or hopefully all of us do. And if you don't, by the way, join, sign up, pay money, and become a member of NAFA. All right, there we go. But think of anything that you've joined, period. Like, why did you decide to become a member of a chamber of commerce or what have you? What was the value proposition that organization had? BNI, whatever, all of these organizations that we might consider paying money to be a part of, there's a reason why we do that. Now, if we get communications from that organization that seem very dispersonal, or, hey, I just kind of want your money, or maybe it's just we're talking at you, we're sending you emails of things that we think are great, but you read them and you're like, nah, that's not really that great. That's an organizational dynamic, and maybe we don't think too much about it, but for us as practitioners, that's certainly not an experience we maybe want our clients or prospects to be experiencing from us. So if you're using, automatic, whether they're newsletters, anything, e-blasts, emails, social media, really rethink it. And like I said, have the ability for us to use technology to have conversations, I think, is just the most critical thing that we can try to do. And so if that means I don't use these tools as much, or I'm really picking the conversation points or the social media posts that look like they're more thought-provoking or maybe more engaging, less canned, more, hey, wow, this was a pretty interesting article on a fairly provocative topic. What do you think, right? Start to ask people questions. Don't just put things out there that say, hey, I'm great and here's something that I did that's great. It's totally fine to do that, but it's more powerful and will elevate your profile exponentially faster and higher if you're doing it in a way that's really engaging. Okay, so, LinkedIn stuff, Hearsay Social, all that stuff, have that be a part of your audit. Be very thoughtful and mindful about it. Am I having conversations? Because if you're just checking a box and the content's kind of dry, kind of generic, and oh, by the way, you think you're the only Hearsay Social person out there? So that same post is going to come to a lot of people. If they're saying you, somebody else, etc., you got to think about that, right? Doesn't make it bad or wrong. It just means that you have to also know that if that's the only things that you're doing online, perspective is reality. People will see that. People will make a judgment accordingly. So, ways that you can be more personal, more intentional, more conversational, and more engaging, those are the ways that you win online. That's how you use technology to your advantage. And not doing it, I think, ultimately is going to hurt you in the run. Maybe everybody else just left because crap, I use Hearsay Social. No, it's great. These tools are fantastic. I think we should, we don't all have time to produce our own content every single day. So use them, just use them wisely. No questions.
Fantastic advice. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. And of course, Brian, thank you for lending us your time and your expertise. Be on the lookout for more Big Ideas webinars. And if you'd like to look and see what we have on the schedule for P+P, again, you can go to conference.nafa.org. And if you'd like to see any of the past Big Ideas webinars, feel free to reach out to us at membernews@nafa.org. or recruitment@nafa.org. Either one works perfectly fine. But Brian, hope you have a great weekend. Hope everybody here has a great weekend. And
thank you, Zach. Anybody that wants to get a hold of me, feel free to reach out. Happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care.